So the title today is Jumpstart. Jumpstart Your Life. And since it's January, we're following our tradition. It's a tradition in all of the CSL churches throughout the world of looking and working with the basic principles of our teaching. And our theme is this month is taken, the theme title is taken from the words of the Science of Mind founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, in his book, This Thing Called You, which I highly recommend. Fabulous book. Life lies open to me, rich, full, and abundant. And these words are as relevant today as when they were written. And I think he wrote these, at the start of the 20th century, back in the 20s and 30s. And they may even be more so, more relevant today than they were then, as we face really a new age. The spiritual principles and tools that he taught serve us, don't they, very well today. And this month, we will anchor ourselves in the basics of our teachings to set the tone for an extraordinary year, a year that lies open to us, rich, full, and abundant. But before we jump into our study for this morning, I want to take a moment to remind you about an opportunity to actively participate this month and win a fabulous prize. Well, I don't know how fabulous, but it's win a prize anyway. In your bulletins, there's a half sheet that has a little title that says, A New Thought About a New Thought. And I introduced this activity last week, but if you weren't here, let me tell you it again. We're looking for ahas. We're going to have, if you have a new thought about, like, oh my gosh, this never, occurred to me, but now I get it, or some new thought about new thought, an aha that has come to you. We're going to choose 3 that rise to the highest level of aha-ness, and we're going to give out prizes for that. So they're going to be awarded the last Sunday of this month, so not next week, but the week after that, which is very cool, and you must be present to win. That's my little way to bribe you to come to church, right? Life lies open to me, rich, full, and abundant. So today we're going to jump into a richer and fuller life. Anybody ready to do that? I'm ready to do that. Okay. Does anyone remember the song by the Pointer Sisters? What is it? Jump for Your Love. You remember that song? I know you remember that song. Yeah, the lyrics didn't really work out today. I kept trying to figure out how we could get that song for us to sing. You thought the one we sang was hard. Yeah, that wouldn't work today at all. But it does have a really good beat to it, doesn't it? It really kind of gets you going, gets you wanting to jump. And I think they played at a lot of weddings, I'm sure, and people are, jumping.
Weddings and bar mitzvahs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you just see a whole crowd doing this. Yeah, it's kind of fun. But the title today, back to the title, made me think more a little bit about Jean Houston's phrase, which she calls jump time. In an interview about a year ago, Jean said that she saw 2012, the year 2012, as a humorous yet important year. It was humorous because of all of the hype around it, right? Yet it was important because it would be a critical juncture point for humanity. And you know the phrase that she uses for critical juncture points, don't you? She uses jump time. So she explained in the interview that throughout human history, we've had to deal with so many of these same such times as, it's all going to end. And then, we're all coming to a critical moment and then we change. She thought that this one might have the greatest importance of all. So today we're going to jump into this juncture point for humanity by emphasizing and re-emphasizing a fundamental tenet in religious science, and that is to realize the power we as individuals have to create. We laid the groundwork for this concept last week, but today we're actually going to jump into it and make it very personal, very, very personal and usable. I'm kind of personable. I kind of put it together there. In the words of Ernest Holmes, Dr. Ernest Holmes, he said, change your thinking, change your life. To learn how to think is to learn how to live, because our thoughts go into a medium that is infinite in its ability to do and to be. Does that sound like just what she just said in her book? He said those words in the 1920s, and science is now proving them through quantum physics. But even though we may know this stuff intellectually, we have it all up here, what really is going on between our ears most of the time? There's some research that says that you and I spend about 92% of our waking time talking to ourselves. That little voice in your head, right? There's that internal voice, that dialogue going on 92% of the time that we're awake. And just what do those conversations sound like? Would you want to have a microphone hooked up to those conversations? Often we're talking to ourselves about what we didn't do well, that we didn't do soon enough or fast enough. And we're beating ourselves up a little bit here and there, aren't we? A lot of times our little voices are saying things like that. Or we're engaged in criticism or judgment of another, because that takes the pressure off of us. Because if somebody else is screwing up, well, hey, it's not us, right? But it's still not a positive sort of thing. Or we're talking to ourselves about what has gone wrong, what did go wrong, or what may go wrong. How many times do we borrow trouble from tomorrow? Or who did what that was unfair to us? Or how there's no way out of a current situation. When you feel stuck, right? 92% of the time is a whole lot of time. What do you think would happen if we made these conversations, these internal thoughts, expansive jump time thoughts? Is anybody familiar with the movie Back to the Future? Anybody see Back to the Future? Okay, this movie really has a lot of special meaning to us because the date that they're trying to get back to, the one that's on the little dashboard in their car, is October 26, 1985. And that's a very special date. Why, Rich?
Because you and I were united in holy wedlock.
Yes, he remembers. That's how he remembers our anniversary on that day.
I watched Back to the Future.
Yeah, I always put the movie out, and he goes, "Oh, yeah." But there's a scene in the movie where Marty McFly feels stymied by a problem. He feels that there's no way around this problem, and Dr. Brown says to him, "Marty, you're not thinking fourth dimensionally." As soon as he began to think fourth dimensionally, ideas came to him, and then there was an answer to his problem. Thinking fourth dimensionally simply means thinking outside of the problem. Instead of thinking how big the problem is, start thinking how big the universe is, and then tell the problem how big the universe is. Another way that is phrased is, don't tell God how big your problem is, tell your problem how big your God is. Right? In How to Use the Science of Mind on page 40, Holmes states, it is necessary for us to withdraw our thought from things as they appear to be and to think independently of any and all existing conditions. No one can hope successfully to practice this science unless he's able and willing to do this. If we dwell only on things as they appear to be, we would never demonstrate beyond that appearance, and everything that happened would merely be more of the same thing. But we step out our consciousness up, see through and beyond the fact to the new cause. So are you willing to look at the situations that arise in your life differently and to have a different internal conversation about them? You may think, how can there possibly be any other way to look at this? I'm a victim. He, she, they is our horrible, awful, you see, this is what's happening. It's so easy to be in that space. There's no other way to look at it when you're in that space. But that's not fourth dimensional thinking. That's not jump time thinking. Let me give you an illustration of a fourth dimensional jump time thinking. Many years ago in a small Indian village, a farmer had the misfortune of owing a large sum of money to a village moneylender. The moneylender, who was old and nasty, fancied the farmer's beautiful young daughter. So he proposed a bargain. He would forego the farmer's debt if he could marry the farmer's daughter. Both the farmer and his daughter were horrified by the proposal and said no. So the cunning moneylender suggested that they let Providence decide the matter. He told them that he would put a black pebble and a white pebble into an empty money bag. Then the girl would pick up one pebble from the bag. If she picked a black pebble, she would become his wife and her father's debt would be forgiven. If she picked the white pebble, she need not marry him and her father's debt would still be forgiven. But if she refused to pick a pebble at all, her father would be thrown into jail. They were standing on the pebble-strewn path in the farmer's field. This is to signify the pebbles, right? As they talked, the moneylender bent over to pick up 2 pebbles. As they picked them up, The sharp-eyed girl noticed that he picked up 2 black pebbles and put them into the bag. So he's leaning over saying, now I'm going to take a white pebble and a black one and put them into the bag here. And then you have to pick one out, all right? He then asked the girl to pick a pebble from the bag. Remember, picking the black pebble would seal her fate as the man's wife. Can you imagine you're standing in that field with the girl? If you had to advise her, what would you have told her? What would you tell her to do? Logical thinking would produce 3 possibilities, right? The girl should refuse to take a pebble, which would land her father in jail. The girl should show that there were 2 black pebbles in the bag and expose the moneylender as a cheat, which would have had unforeseen negative consequences. You can really bet on that. The girl should pick up the black pebble and sacrifice herself in order to save her father from his debt and imprisonment, which would lead to her life of misery. This is what we would call a dilemma, isn't it? Right? And from the perspective of our logical, rational minds, these are the only options, right? So anyway, we're going to come back to that. How many times have we looked at a problem and not been able to figure out an answer? Just about every time I sit down in front of a computer, all right? I mean, really, seriously, how many times have we had an issue in our lives that we just don't know what the answer is? We say, I just don't see how this is possible. Or, I've looked at every conceivable option and I cannot figure it out. I have no idea how to solve this. This is the conversation that goes on in our heads back and forth, right? And none of it, not any of it, is 4th dimensional or jump time thinking. What does it take to shift into that 4th dimensional jump time thinking, where the answers simply come to us or the solutions simply occur? And we will get back to this, I promise. First, it takes awareness. We have to be aware that where we are, right where we are, that we're in a dilemma. Second, it takes willingness. And third, it takes trust. So we have awareness, willingness, and trust. 1, become aware of what you are saying about it and that you are trying to figure it out. Become aware that at the level of your current thinking, you can't figure it out. Polly will often say, my best thinking got me here. Okay, so your current level of thinking, you still can't figure it out. My favorite Einstein statement is, and I've often quoted it, we cannot solve a problem from the level it was created. You can't solve the problem at the same level of thinking that created it. And you can apply this to what they're trying to do with the gun issues and everything. It's like, wow, you guys are staying at the same level. I think we need some 4th dimensional thinking here. We need some jumpstart thinking. We've got to get to a different place to be able. I know that there's an answer there. I know that there is. We have to be willing to do that. 2, we have to become willing to release all of the ideas you had and the need to figure it out or worry about it. Wow. Release all the ideas that you already had how to figure it out and let it go, right? In fact, realize as soon as you even use the words figure it out, you've taken yourself out of the ability to allow Spirit's infinite intelligence to work through you as and on behalf of you. Remember Emerson's, get your bloated nothingness out of the way. Let Spirit do it. Let Spirit in, the willingness to turn it over. So that's the 3rd one. Finally, turn it over in trust to a power that created the universe, that knows nothing, or that knows to create life from nothing. I mean, think about the power that the universe has. It can create life from nothing. That beats your heart. You can't do that. You can't consciously make your heart beat. That breathes your breath. You do that automatically, don't you? An example, we've been looking for the right place to move our church to, a place that's ours. And this has been going on for a couple of years now. We've kind of been watching Craigslist and the ads, and we've looked at, Suzanne and I have gone out and looked at places and called on places, and man, I got to tell you, we tried to fit, it's like, well, this would work, but it doesn't really have space for kids when the kids come. And well, this is kind of small, but could we make it work? It was like trying to put a square peg in a round hole, or a round peg, it just wasn't gonna go. We tried to make it work. But then I decided, and I think Suzanne did too, it's like, you know what? Let's practice what we preach here, right? Let's use a little fourth dimensional thinking. So first we really became aware. It's like, why are we trying to make something work that isn't workable for us? Okay, we're trying to force something. That doesn't feel right. We became aware of our thoughts. And there was some fear there too. Was there fear behind your thoughts? Are you coming from love or are you coming from fear? Always come from love. That's a good test to ask yourself. It's like, okay, we don't have to do anything. So we don't have to come from fear. That's okay. If the cost was too high, then it wasn't the right place. If the landlord was kind of schmarmy and it didn't look like he'd be easy to work with, then no, that wasn't going to work either. If there wasn't going to be space for expansion, and if all the things didn't fit together, if the rent was ridiculous, or the required things that we couldn't do, it just none of these were. And so when you say things like, what am I going to do, or how can I figure it out, they're saying the same thing, and you're still blocking yourself from the intelligence to flow through you. So then we shifted into a willingness. We just relaxed in the arms of spirit, and just said, you know what? We know that the right and perfect place will be there. It will make itself available at the right and perfect time. We're going to know that. And to borrow a saying from Suzanne, and I love this because she gets in a pickle, and instead of getting upset about it, she says, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see how God works this out. So we said that. I'm really excited to see how God works this out for us. That's great. She'll be in some kind of, dilemma with her workplace and say that, I'm excited. What does God have? And God, what do you have stored for me on this one? This is great. And then finally, we just let it go. We just didn't do anything with it because we'd set a date, and that date kind of came and went, and we went, okay, well, it didn't happen yet. You know what? We're going to pull back. We're not going to try to tell the universe when this is supposed to happen. We're just going to let it happen. And the moment we did that, this place became available like that. We wanted to move by November 1st, and we kind of let it go. And it was like 2 weeks later that she found this place. Quite amazing. So we trusted that it would actually work out for our highest and best good, and that we would be guided to know what needed to be done. And, of course, what happened next. Even, he said, gosh, we need you to have insurance. And she just was led to the right person to find our insurance. And it's just fallen into place. It's been really amazing. So, the bottom line is you just cannot outdo God. You really can't. We might think we're going to figure it all out. We're going to all do it on our own. But when we have that willingness, it just becomes even better than we could have even imagined, which is so true. We move into fourth dimensional thinking, into jump time thinking, when we are aware, when we are willing, and when we trust. So let's go back to our young girl with the dilemma, right? Within a matter of seconds, she did our three things. She became aware that none of the obvious things to do would produce the result that she wanted. She took a deep breath in willingness to let go. Just gonna let it go. And simply, in the blink of an eye, she trusted the Great Spirit, the God of her understanding, to show her another way. And with that, she put her hand into the money bag and drew out a pebble. But without even looking at it or letting anybody else see it, she fumbled it, and it dropped onto the ground, and it mixed with all of the other pebbles. And she said, oh my gosh, how clumsy of me. Well, we'll never find it now, but never mind. If you look in the bag for the one that's left, you'll be able to tell which pebble I picked. Which pebble's left? It was the black one. So obviously in her mind, coming from it, she knew she must have picked the white one, right? And since the remaining pebble is black, it could only be assumed that she had picked the white one. And since the moneylender dared not to admit his dishonesty, the girl changed the outcome of a seemingly impossible situation, right? New ways of thinking, new internal conversations, and then new results really do happen. And they can happen that quickly when we are aware, when we're willing, and when we're trusting. What conversations will you choose this day, this month, this year? You have a day, a month, a year right now that you're holding, that's yours to craft and shape and to mold as any way you choose. This day, this month, this year isn't contained by what's in it. It's contained by how you think about it. Let's all choose to think fourth dimensionally today and every day to jumpstart a life that is rich and full and that is infinitely abundant. And so it is. And don't forget to put your ahas, your new thought about a new thought, in the basket back there, because we do have our contest.